Now, this is going to be like kind of the closing. So, I had this set of dreams. And the set of dreams is very peculiar. And I won't necessarily go into detail, but I'll allude to them a little bit. And in one of the dreams, in one of the set of dreams I was having at this time, I woke up and I was strapped into a chair, right? It was like a kind of like a wooden chair, I guess. And my hands were strapped into it. And there's this guy with a rod. I can't really remember. I can't really remember much about it, what the guy looked like. But I was in this chair, strapped in, and I wasn't scared. I wasn't like captured or anything, or not that I was aware of. But the being kind of tapped me, like I guess tapped me on my head, right? And my eyes went pure white. It's like white light was coming out of my eyes, and all of my seven chakras lit up white. Now, I have no idea what that means even to this day. I tried to look it up. I couldn't really find anything. Like I couldn't find any experiences like that. So there's a few ways I lean with it. It could be another being from another solitary planet is trying to like do an experiment on me to force feed me energies to see how that will affect my evolution, like a guinea pig type of thing, or it was an initiation of a planetary being that was given permission to do this initiation towards me so I could grow in thought or grow in enlightenment. I really don't know which it is because I can't access that information readily, which is why I'm making these videos, because I can't do it and I'm tired of sitting on it, trying to do it, not being able to. So maybe it's not my place to do that. So maybe it's my place to share it for someone else to be able to go into it and be like, okay, I've had this experience. Okay, I have the ability to go and ask these questions. I have the ability to go and do these things. I have the ability to find him and go into his dream and talk to him about it. I have that ability. Now, I'm not saying that that's possible. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that's why I'm making these videos, so people that have similar thought patterns as me will realize in the societal consciousness they're not alone. But from dreams like that, I realized something, that we are all just we're all just fetuses in a womb of something so much greater than what we can actually perceive. And our minds are not equipped and not vast enough to hold that type of information readily, which is why our dreams often come in a certain type of code. Like it comes in it plays back to us very strangely. And the more and more you research and read books and develop a language of understanding through principles and words and symbols, then you're able to decode your dreams easier, because your subconscious mind has more information to feed you so you can understand it. So when you see the experience within your dream space, it's not you climbed up a hill and then you fell backwards into the sky, and it turned into the sea, and then you swam to the bottom of the sea, and then you ended up in outer space. Well, a normal person would be like, that was a fucking weird dream. But a spiritual person would be like, okay, so I had a challenge where I climbed up the mountain, but maybe I failed the challenge and I fell into the sea, so I got it super emotional. So I went to the root of my emotional problem and found myself out in space where I was able to think about it clearly. You see, like perspective. Root chakra, crown chakra. Perspective. Degrees. Different worlds. Worlds within worlds. So I'm saying this because the reality that we perceived based on the experiences that we're having, based on the knowledge that we're gaining, on some level is shared. And the reason why I say that is because I've had dreams of certain things happening and certain things being done that I haven't read before, that I haven't even thought about before, that I haven't experienced. But then I was able to read about it. And when I read about it, it completely made sense. Now, when I was dreaming about the situation, was a situation I was dreaming about my reality? Or was that situation I was dreaming about someone else's reality being projected into my mind because of vibrations that I held within my mind space? And I'm gonna give you an example. Well, I'm gonna give you like more details on it. So there's books by Alice Bailey, which if you don't know who Alice Bailey is, maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know. But she talked about a lot of things. Some things I agree with her about, some things I don't, right? And it's based on my experience, right? But then again, she was doing things that were, for her time, very advanced spiritually, right? In another world. Now, some people say she's demonic. Some people say she's a devil. Some people like there's a whole bunch of theories on it, right? Especially with her Lucis Trust being a part of NATO with all that other stuff. I don't really know about that, and I don't really care about that too much, to be honest with you, because people will say a whole bunch of things. Like, it's a possibility that the organization Lucis Trust that runs her foundation, because she's on pass now, there's a possibility that, like, hey, they're evil people. But there's also an equal chance of possibility that they're actually good people trying to do good things. Like, that's a possibility too. You can't rule it out. But I remember having these experiences and then reading about it later. So it's not like I read about it, then I dreamed about it. No. I dreamed about it first, and then I read about it as if it was confirmation. Now check this out. Is it just pure coincidence that eventually I was going to come to those thoughts, and eventually I was going to come across those books, and eventually I was going to read it? Is that coincidence? Or are there beings that are watching us, throwing vibrations upon us so that we catch certain mental frequencies, and those mental frequencies are communication, or like words or structures of vibration, which is communication, which is silence, putting it into our minds, our mind space. Our mind space gets held up into our frequency. Like the frequency of our mind is vibrating at a certain frequency. They throw a frequency in there dense enough for it to catch into your mind frequency, but still high density enough for it to lead you somewhere. Kind of like a string. Like, let's say your mind is a vibrating box, and you throw a feather into the vibrating box of light. Well, the feather is going to go into it because it's heavy, but then the vibrations are going to get a hold of it and equalize it, and then it's going to slowly push it out. And as it's slowly pushing it out, it's leaving a trail. Well, that trail is a portal. That trail is a frequency to another way of thought, another perspective, another thought pattern, another matrix, sometimes another world, sometimes another universe, sometimes another realm, possibly. Like, time space is very difficult to understand like that. So my question is, in this experience, are the disciples of Alice Bailey reaching out to me? Like, are the aspirants or the adepts of Alice Bailey's theosophy or understanding reaching out to me in my dream space and communicating with me? Or am I just catching on to that same frequency they were on back in the 20th century, 1900s, early 1900s, that I'm able to see what they're seeing because of the frequency that I'm in. It's almost impossible to know, because in order for me to know, I'll have to surpass the frequency. In order to surpass the frequency, I would have to map out the frequency to see how I even got here in the first place. And then once I map out the frequency, I would have to go below the frequency consciously to experience what's below that frequency, experience what's above that frequency. And I'm speaking about it in a linear third dimensional perspective, like up and down, because it's easier to understand, but it's a lot more nuanced than that. It's very, very detailed in specific degrees and specific cycles and in specific houses, in specific alignments, in specific everything. But I say it like that just to simplify it. So I'm gonna kind of end it with this. Whether or not we're being controlled by other beings, or other beings are watching over us, trying to help us, to be honest, it really doesn't matter. What truly matters is your spirituality and how it shapes your life. Now, I'm not saying that you become spiritual and your life becomes perfect. No. What I'm saying is your spirituality fighting for the best part of you? Are you trying to be better? Are you trying to do more? Are you trying to have more understanding? If your spirituality is leading you to think about other people, if your spirituality is including for you to have discernment between societal groups and cultures, if your spirituality is leading you to a broader sense of who you are, I think that's a really good thing. But on the other end, if your spirituality is limiting you and separating you, then that spirituality is at a low frequency. It's still a good thing, because maybe you need to be in that light for a little bit to spiritually evolve, because spiritually you're young. Spiritually we're all fetuses, but some people are still conceptions. Some people are fetuses. Some peoples are mature in the womb, and very advanced people are being birthed, and extremely advanced people are already born, coming into bodies. We're going to like avatars and stuff, like legit avatars, not like. Never mind. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, we have a duty to ourselves and to our spiritual lineage to progress ourselves as far as we can and put up the good fight, so the people that take upon our vibrations can pass through the stages that we're having trouble with ease, with more ease, so they can get to the next point, so they can break down those spiritual hindrances, so the next generation can ease past those. Eventually, our spiritual troubles will be the paradise of a new generation, and their spiritual struggles will be the hell of future generations to come after them. And that sounds kind of, let me rephrase that. Through our spiritual not grievances, through our spiritual struggles, once we chip away at them, the generations after us will have an easier time going through those same degrees until they get to their own part, to where now a lot of people have traversed and they start traversing together. And then the next generation, they'll start traversing more. And by the time that third or fourth spiritual lineage generation comes, they will start out where our heaven ended. To where in our waking world, when we died and we're at peace and we've done all we could do, and we're at peace with what we've done, and we reached the point where spiritually we're balanced and we're in a heavenly state and we're in a nirvanic state based on the principles of what we knew at that time, that heavenly state, generations from now, is going to be the natural state of them being born and growing up into the world. Until they reach that point of, I got to break down these spiritual barriers for the next generations. But at the same time, those spiritual generations that are in that heaven, below that heaven will be that hell, which will be the struggle that we went through. And that struggle that we went through, those future generations at a lower degree will also feel that too. Because there will always be poverty in the world. There will always be war in the world. There will always be these things until war is personified within one person. Until peace is personified in one person. Until each principle is personified in one person. When everything is personified into one ultimate thing, that's when the human race will be one. When everything starts condensing. When there's 2 people on the planet again. There's only 2 beings on the planet. The generation of our lineage will be passed on to the next world. And then those 2 beings of the last of the generation will birth a new generation. And that new generation will grow up with the wisdom of our time. But the vibrations that they'll receive at that time will be more advanced. And the generation that they birth will be us in the future. But our conscious minds that we have now won't be in those bodies. It will be outside of those bodies, talking into them, speaking into them, pouring into them. So we will be their higher selves, but those selves are us. Except for, instead of looking at it from a 3rd dimensional view, we'll be looking at it from a 4th dimensional view. So this is a little more into the Aporichi cycles, and I'll get more into it, but